Hello! I'm just starting my new game night today and everything is fine. Oh, hold on, I got a phone. What? Okay, my friend is not coming. I'm glad I have another friend who's still coming. Well, let me call him. Hey, so I've got all my games ready. Are you here soon? What? You're not coming? Why? Okay, I guess I'll try to think of something then. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll try it next time. Okay, goodbye. Okay, I'm down to 0 friends. I guess it's just me again. Hello, and welcome to DiceTillDawn, and my first top 10 list. I'm talking to you today about my top 10 solo board games. I always liked video games, and they are usually a solo experience, especially for me. So I've been looking around for the past few years on solo board games and found out there are quite a few games that work well solo or are even only made to be played solo. So there might be some games you haven't even heard about, or many you haven't heard about, or you haven't thought about playing solo. So if you ever have that moment when you would really like to play some board games, but your friends are out doing work, or it's late in the night, so you don't really want to call anyone over, and you still have a few hours to kick back. Okay, you can watch a movie or play video games, but it's just something to actually shuffle on a deck of cards or push some cubes around in the physical aspect of it. So if you are always, if you are ever thinking about that, then this list might be for you. I will go through. Actually, I wanted to do a top 5 first, but my first shortlist had 30 games in it, so obviously it wouldn't fit on a top 5. But I have cut it down to top 10 plus 3 honorable mentions I just had to squeeze in there. So I will do this in 2 parts, maybe even 2 videos, not sure yet. But first I will go through the honorable mentions and through the numbers 10 to 6 and 10 from 5 to 1. And I will talk a little bit about the games and how it feels to play, but I won't be going into rules or anything like that, obviously, and I won't be showing the components and stuff like that, but just to give you a basic idea of the gameplay. So, top 10 solo board games, and let's start with my 3 honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is from Ludonote Games and designers Bruno Cathala and Ludovic Maublanc, and it's SOS Titanic. It's basically solitaire with a deck of cards, but the cards are now passengers, tourists, and high class, like 2 classes, and you have characters you played which have special powers and some action cards which have special powers, but other than that it's just basic solitaire. So why is it fun? Well, I don't know really. It's just if you like solitaire for beginning, that's a good start. But this has theme in it. There's a nice art book. You flip the pages to see when Titanic starts to sink. So you are starting to lose those rows you usually play solitaire at. So you have less space and you're losing passengers. And your goal is to just save as many passengers as you can and see if you can actually compare your score to that of the original Titanic, or maybe even try and save all of them if you're very lucky, I guess. But there's a lot of like depth in it, and the special powers are nice. The action cards give it a nice twist. There are some nice things in this game. It's light and easy and quick, nothing too hard, but you can really quickly just set it up and play. I highly recommend, if you like solitaire, check out SOS Titanic. Okay, so that was my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention I've just actually reviewed, and it's from Upper Deck Games, designed by Danny Mandel and Benji Joski. Sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing these names, but it's Legendary Encounters, the alien deck building game. The reason it's not higher on the list, or actually on the list, is because it's actually best at 3, as I said in the review, and the one player is okay, but it's too easy, and some of the things like the coordination loses its fun, and also some of the scenarios have those next player does something, they're always pointing to you, and so the mechanics just don't work that well. You can play with multiple decks if you want. I don't like doing that because it's very hard to manage which guy had which cards and stuff like that, but if that's not a problem for you, then Alien might go up on your list. And don't get me wrong, it's a good solo game, but it's just not as good as the others I have here in my opinion. And so we are going to my last honorable mention. Kind of very sad to not get this on the list, but I guess it's about the same as Legendary, that it's just not as good solo as it is with multiple players. So that is from Academy Games, designed by Brian Mayer, Freedom, the Underground Railroad. This is about the abolitionist movement and freeing slaves to Canada in the 19th century, 18th century, well, starting from 1800, and a very highly thematic game, very hard co-op actually, but it goes from 1 to 4. You can play with one character or you can play multiple characters, which is okay in this game because they are quite easy to manage. But the one-player game is very quick and very hard. I've never beaten the one-player game. We have beaten the 3-player game and I think a 2-player game also, but it is hard, and the cards actually give a lot of historic information in a respectful manner, which is very nice, and the subject matter is kind of touchy and so, but it's all history and it's done here in a graceful manner, I would say. So if you like history or anything like that and cooperative games, check out Freedom, the Underground Railroad. Okay, so that's my honorable mentions, and now we shall go to my actual list. And I'll do a quick pause here and then restart. Okay, welcome back, and let's start with number 10. And this comes from Portal Games and designed by Michiel Hendricks. Legacy, the Testament of Duke de Greci. This is actually a multiplayer game which has a solo variant in it called the Testament variant, and I actually prefer the solo game to the multiplayer game. The multiplayer game is fine and fun. I haven't tried it more than 2. I'm not sure if it's better that way, but it's okay with 2 players and it's a good game. But the solo variant is just something much more interesting. Basically this game is about your genealogy, about your family tree. And in the basic game you're just building your family tree from the beginning, but in the solo variant you're actually building it backwards, because the story is in the solo variant that some rich noble died and you might be linked to his heritage, so you have to prove that you are actually his descendant. So you actually go backwards to your family tree and try to finish these hints that say that your great-grandfather was the scientist or stuff like that. So it's very thematic, and you can make stories about why this guy married this girl, and why they what was their family like, and all kind of things. So that helps if you like to tell the stories. But anyway, it's very interesting, pretty quick, and it's great to see your family tree grow up and see in the end what you ended up with. Very fun if you like any sort of that sort of things. Check it out, Legacy, Testament of Duke de Greci. Okay, and on to my number 9. It's actually a small card game from Fantasy Flight called Space Hulk, Death Angel, the card game. And This is supports from 1 to 6, I think. Yeah, yeah, 1 to 6 players. It's only card game about you being a space marine and kicking some Xeno butt, I would say. And it's very hard. You will lose a lot of games, at least in the beginning, and it keeps it hard even though you know the game, because there's some random elements and stuff like that. But it's basically just you have a row of marines and you give them a simple command, either turn around or move somewhere and use some sort of thing, or support another of the marines. And the choices are pretty easy, but you have to really make them in the right order and activate the troops in the right order, and it's still going to be very hard. So it's a nice puzzle every time you play, and I think this could be fine with more than one player. I've never tried it with more than one player. Actually, I played one game with 2 players and it was fine, but it's great with 1 player. Yeah, and there are many expansions. I have almost all of them here. Still, they fit in this small box. But the base game itself has a lot of game in it, so don't be worried that you need the expansions. I still haven't even played 1 or 2 of the expansions, so they're not necessary. But it's a pretty cheap game. The expansions are pretty cheap. All in all, I think this is still less than a big board game with all the expansions for me. So highly recommend if you like sci-fi, cooperative and hard games. So try Space Hulk Death Angel, the card game. Okay, then we go on with the historic theme, I guess. And actually, Joel Eddy from Drive-Thru Reviews actually recommended this thing and this series, and I started looking it up and watched the playthrough from Late Night Gamer and got really intrigued by the mechanics and the gameplay, and I really like history, all kinds of history things, so that's always a plus for me, such as Freedom, the Underground Railroad and all those things. And so I looked at Volker Runkes and Jeff Grossman's Cuba Libre. This is second on the Coin series, Counter-Insurgents series. The first one was Andean Abyss. I think the third one was A Distant Plain. The first one is from, I think, Colombia. Third one, Distant Plain, is about the Afghanistan conflict, and the fourth one, Fire in the Lake, is about Vietnam. They're coming up with another one. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, there are a lot of these. And basically, yeah, it's about Castro's insurgency 57 to 58, and there are 4 factions vying for control of Cuba. There are the Mafia, the government, Batista's government, and the Castro's forces and Directoriat. I guess it was the student revolution movement or something like that. And it's played with cards, there are unique mechanics, and the reason it's on the solo game list is because it comes with AI rules for all of the factions. So you can control one of them or 2 of them, or even all of them if you want, and just play. But you can also play it against the bots, and all of the factions have different abilities, so it's asymmetric that way. They have some common things, but many of them are very different in what they try to achieve. There are different victory conditions for all the factions, and it's card driven, and there is no hidden information, so even controlling 4 factions is not that bad actually. There is a Sinatra card, which is always a plus for me, and well, I don't know. I just really like it. It's very thematic, and actually one cool element the AIs bring to the game is that we had a 4-player game of this some time ago, and one of my friends had to leave a bit early, so the game was still going on, and he was playing the Mafia. And well, okay, yeah, goodbye and stuff like that, and then we just switched on the bot AI for Mafia, and what do you know, the Mafia actually won the game. But yeah, so the AI charts are not easy to understand at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. It works great with 1, works great with 2, works great with 4, yeah, why not 3 also, but with 2 you could actually play team games, which I haven't tried yet, but I would really like to try it. So anyway, very deep and pretty heavy game. Not very heavy, but pretty heavy for starters. So if you're not into bit heavier games, maybe steer clear of it for now. But check out. Actually, the Late Night Gamers playthrough is very good for you to see how the game works. So that's Cuba Libre. That was a big, big thing. But yeah, now we're going to something very much lighter. And my number 7 from Freedom and Freeze, Friday. This is only for one player and deck builder game where you are actually, I think you are actually Friday and you are trying to help Robinson develop his skills to survive. And you're playing through the deck 3 times and getting new cards, getting also aging card because Robinson is getting older, which are very bad, and you have to survive 3 of the like crisis phases where you face different like problems, and in the end you are fighting 1 or 2 pirate ships and then see how well you did if you manage to win the pirate ships. You can count your score. There are a lot of different levels of difficulty you can change, and you can manage your scores and see how you've been doing. I think I've played like 40 games of this, and still it's always, I have very fond memories of this game. So if you like deck building and you think you would ever have time for some solo games, this is very quick. When you know how to play it, it's like 20 minutes or so. So be sure to check out the cheap and easy to get Friday. So on to the last one on this list actually. So before we go to the top 5, this is actually the predecessor to Cuba Libre, so back to the pretty heavy game category, also designed by Volkorunke and published by GMD Games, Labyrinth The War on Terror. So this is basically a card-driven game about after the September terrorist attacks, and there are 2 sides, the USA and the jihadist terrorists. And again, it has bot rules for the jihadist, so you can play alone against the bots, and the jihadist will do things according to a flowchart. Also, it's very thematic and kind of funny how the AI does weird and funny things, but somehow I think they are pretty thematic, because I can't believe that terrorist groups would be super organized like clockwork all over the world. So they're doing weird things all around the world, and suddenly those weird things actually escalate into great things for them, and sometimes they don't. But it's kind of funny that way. It can get into a bit of a strange loop sometimes where things are not going and you can actually predict and kind of game the system a bit, but it's still fun. Of course, when you play with 2 players, all that goes away, because then it's just very asymmetric game. This is actually, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention, but both of the factions actually do very different things. So USA has troops and he can actually overthrow the government, stuff like that, and the terrorist just pokes around all over the place and tries to put terrorist cells all over the world and do small attacks here and there and all kinds of things. So they are very asymmetric. But yeah, pretty deep game. Again, you can play it in three ways actually, or 3 modes of length. So you can play through the deck 1, 2 or 3 times, and there are also some different starting scenarios which actually change the game quite a bit, even though it might be just small few changes of some statuses on the board. And you can actually download more of them, I guess, and all that stuff. But yeah, that's Labyrinth, The War on Terror, my number 6. So that was from the honorable mentions up to number 6, and now I will keep another pause, and then we'll go through the final 5.